Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing good today. Thank you for watching the last tutorial, and like I said, this is going to be a series, so you may need to watch the previous tutorial so that you will understand what I'm going to do today. All right, especially if you are a beginner. Okay, so in the last tutorial what we did was just an updated basic bodice pattern. And the two darts that we used were the bust dart and then the waist dart. And then for the back, we only used the waist dart. And then in the last tutorial, I also explained how to eliminate the zipper bulge and how to know the amount of dart that you should take in at the waist, how the amount of dart that you take in determine how the cup of your bodice is going to be. And by the cup, I mean here where the bust is going to be. Okay, so looking at this, like I demonstrated in the last class, taking in both the waist and the side dart for the front pattern, you see that I already have a cup here, and that is one of the functions of the darts. So today I'm going to show you how you can change this, a bust dart, into a princess dart. So it might be the armhole princess dart or the shoulder princess dart, especially for work wears. And then, like I said, for office clothing, we do not need the under bust measurement yet. All right, so when we start with princess darts for our party wears, we are going to start using the under bust measurement. Okay, that is just a summary of what we did in the last class. So come along, let's do this together again. What we are doing today basically is like a dart transfer. So we want to transfer the bust dart, okay, the bust dart, which is what we use to reconcile the difference between the front and the back half lengths. Okay, we want to transfer it to the shoulder or the armhole. All right, so the only difference between what I have here and what I did in the last class is just the bust dart. So for the bust dart in the last class, I said that you should mark 1 inch away from the bust point, okay? 1 inch away from the bust point, and then you do your bust dart. And the reason for that is because we do not want the bust dart to get to the bust point. The bodice is going to look funny, all right? And besides, we want more room at the bust area, okay? So for today's tutorial, because we want to transfer the bust dart, we are going to draw the bust dart line to get to the bust point and not 1 inch away like we did in the last class. And like I said, for this type of bodice, you're going to have 2 darts on your bodice. That is the waist dart and then the bust dart. You know those kind of clothes, okay? Especially in ready-to-wear clothes where you see both the waist dart and the bust dart. All right, so that is what you have here. But for today's one, we are going to transfer this bust dart. We are going to do the pattern for a princess dart for a work wear. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do is to determine where you want the princess line to be. Is it the armhole? Is it the shoulder? And mind you, you can transfer it to anywhere you want to. You can transfer it below here, okay? You can transfer it to the mid armhole, you can transfer it to the mid shoulder, and you can transfer it to this point, anywhere you want to transfer it to. Even some can even transfer it to the front. Okay, depends on the design. You can transfer it here. Depends on the design that you want to achieve. And that is the reason why pattern making is very good, because you can manipulate, do any form of manipulations and alterations on your pattern before you transfer it to your fabric. So now let us determine where we want it to be. First, let us deal with the shoulder princess dart. So I want a shoulder princess dart on this bodice. Okay, I want to eliminate this bust dart and turn it into a shoulder princess dart. So the first thing you're going to do is to determine where you want it to be. So I'm going to go with a mid shoulder princess dart. So what I'm going to do is to find the midpoint between my neck width and the shoulder slant. Okay, what I have here is 4.5. Find the midpoint of 4.5. I have 2.25, then I'm going to mark 2.25 right here. So that means I'm going to transfer here this bust dart to this shoulder dart. And like I said in the last class, you should do this, come out a little, so that by the time we close this, we can open this up correctly. So the next thing you're going to do is to draw this shoulder dart to meet the bust point line. The next thing you're going to do is to close this bust dart, okay, so that we can open this. To open a new dart, you have to close an existing one. All right, so here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up this dart. I'm going to cut it open, leave it open. I'll get to the bust point. Okay, you see, I stopped here, right? But you know that before I can transfer this to here, I have to close it. So I'm going to close the bust dart. That's why I'm cutting out this pattern right here. So this is my first dart leg, this one here, and this is the second one, the one on the bust line, right? So I'm going to bring this first one to meet up with the second one, thereby closing it, okay? You see that by closing it, I'm opening this place up. Do you see what we have done now? This is to mean that we have transferred this bust dart. Can you see this now? You see that we have automatically moved what we have here on the bust line. We have automatically moved it to the shoulder dart. So it is very, very simple. If you don't want a waist dart as well, and you want to transfer this waist dart to the shoulder dart, what you're going to do is this. You're going to close this one, and by doing that, you have transferred both the waist dart and the bust dart to here. You see how simple it is, and that is why I love patterns. So let me open this one up because I did not intend to close it. I actually want a princess dart. So what you're going to do, this sharp edge, you're going to blend it. You're going to blend it, okay? This one too, you're going to blend it. So by the time you blend it, you can cut it, and then you have your princess dart. So what you're going to do if you want a shoulder princess dart, you're going to cut this dart, right? From this first dart leg, cut it like this. Okay, to meet here, cut this one too like this. So you are going to have two patterns for your front. This is going to be the center front, and this is going to be the side front pattern. One other thing is, by the time you open this up, you will see that if you should cut it out, this pattern exactly, and you join it, you would realize that your dart here at the shoulder point will not match. It will not match. Okay, so what you're going to do is this. You're going to come up a little. For this one that looks a little bit curvier than the other, this one, okay, I'm going to come up by about 0.5 inch, and then I'm going to join it to this part. And by so doing, this is what I'm going to cut out. This one from here, like this, okay, like this, and then this. So that is for the shoulder. You see, it is very simple. Now let us go to the armhole princess dart. It is also simple. Remember that what we are doing here is for work wears, and for work wears we don't need any tightening like we would do if we were doing our party wears. So I'm going to close this as though we did not open it. All right, I don't want it to affect what we want to do at the armhole side. So for the armhole, here's what is going to happen. Just like what we first did here was to determine where we want the shoulder dart to be, right? Where we want the dart to be. The next thing we're going to do is to determine where the armhole princess dart is going to be. So let me give you one trick here. On the average, what you should do is that you should measure what you have here. On this armhole curve, I have about 8.25. Find the midpoint of 8.25. Okay, that is about 4.1. So I'm going to mark 4.1 here on this line. This is 4.1. All right, so this is the new midpoint that we'll be working with. So guys, if you have a big bust, what I want you to do from this point that we marked, go up by about 2 inches, get a new point, and that is where your armhole princess dart should start. Okay, if you're on the small side, if you have a small bust, what you should do, you can use either this midpoint that we just got, or you come down by about 1 inch and then you connect it to here. So now let me tell you something. Just like the more the dart is, the more cup you will form. Okay, it is the same thing as the wider this armhole, the wider it is. Okay, let me use a ruler. So if you do this, you see that this part is a little bit small. It doesn't give me more room. But if I come here like this, you see that it's like I have an extension. So for someone with a bigger bust, this is the kind of armhole that will suit you, not this one or the one below it. Okay, sorry, I think my camera stopped working at the point. So what I did here was that after getting this point, you know I said if you're on the big side, you should go up by about 2 inches, connect it to the bust point line, right? And if you're on the small side, you can use this point, which is the midpoint of this curve, or you come down by about 1 to 1.5 inches. It depends on the size of the bust. Okay, so I used this midpoint, and then I said that before you cut it out, right, I want you to go up by about half an inch. All right, so I drew half an inch upwards, and then I now reconnected this new half an inch point to my chest line. Okay, and that is the broken line, this broken line. So that's going to be my new armhole. Why I did this is because by the time I cut it out, okay, I do not want to have a shortage by the time I'm joining the two patterns. I want to have a matching pattern. Okay, so now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut out this point like this so that we can close this bust dart and open this one. Okay, to the bust point. All right, just that way. So now what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to close this one so that I can open up the armhole dart. You see by the time we close this, automatically, because we have already slashed here, it will open up, and that is our armhole princess dart for our work wear, office wear. You know, if I should cut this out like this, I'm going to have this place will be pointy, and I don't want it to be pointy. So I want to curve it, okay, to eliminate any pointiness. Okay, so here we go. This is our armhole princess dart. So if you like, you can do this, the armhole, and if you like, you can do the shoulder princess dart. Okay, so this is it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the pattern from the neckline so that you can see it well. Don't forget this part. I almost forgot actually. That is if you'll be using the shoulder princess dart, don't forget to go up a little. So now I'm going to cut this place, and then I'm going to follow the new armhole line that I drew. And here it is. So I'm going to cut out this waist dart. So you see what I showed you now, we transferred it first to the shoulder if you want the shoulder, and then we transferred it again to the armhole if you want the armhole. I hope you understand. So this is it for our workwears. Looking at this, you see that I did not use the under bust measurement at all. Okay, so now let's work with the back pattern. So this is the side front, and this is the center front. This will be cut on fold, or it depends on the kind of design that you are trying to achieve. Okay, now let's concentrate on the back. For the back pattern, we need to determine if we want the armhole or the shoulder princess dart. Okay, but because I already did the armhole princess dart for the front, I am going to do the shoulder princess dart for the back. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is to determine where you want to place the shoulder dart. Like I said, it can be the mid shoulder, it can be here close to the base of the neck, and it can be here. It depends on where you want it to be, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the mid shoulder. All right, so you're going to measure what you have here on this slant. Okay, find the midpoint make a mark and then you connect it to here. All right. So because the back does not have a bust, you can observe that we did not come down by 1 inch, neither did we go up by 1 inch, because we are not trying to create room for anything at the back, unlike the front. All right. So basically we are done for the back. So like I said, if you do not want a tightly fitted clothing, then you should use this method. It is different from our bustiers and off shoulders, where you have to do bust tightening, under bust tightening, upper bust tightening, armhole tightening and all. For this, we do not need any form of tightening. So if you want a fitted cloth, but you do not want it to be really hugging or tight, all right, then you can use this method. So in the next tutorial, we'll be talking about how to draft your pattern for a princess dart bustier. Okay, so now for this one, we are actually done. This is the center back and this is the side back. You know, it's the back, so we are not closing anything to open up anything. All right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to cut through here so that I can separate this part, which is the center back, from the side back. But before I do that, I'm going to extend this part. All right, you see that this line that I drew is tilting towards this side, so invariably by the time we cut it out, it will not match, except we extend this line a little by 0.25 inch to 0.5. all right, if you have more fabric, it is better than not having enough when you are sewing. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is just to blend this part, because despite the fact that we do not have any curve at the back, we still do not want it to be pointed. Okay, we are done. So now I'm going to cut it out. So I'm going to follow this grain line for the zipper. Okay, and one other thing is this: if you also want the armhole princess dart for the back, what you're going to do is just to measure what you have here, from the shoulder slant, measure what you have here, find the midpoint. Okay, mark the midpoint. Let's assume that this is the midpoint. Okay, and then you connect it to the bust point. If you're on the big side, from this midpoint, come up, go up by about 1 to 2 inches, and then you connect it. All right, so it is the same thing, and then you cut it out. This is our pattern. So I'm going to open up the darts so that we can have 2 patterns for the back. Okay, so you see what we have. This is the back pattern. So by the time you join it, all right, this place will match because of the allowance that we have put here. This place will match, and then you have your princess dart at the back, your shoulder princess dart. So this is the back pattern and this is the front pattern. You see, it is very simple. So thank you guys, thank you very much for watching this tutorial. If you found it useful and if you learned a new thing, please let me know. Drop your comments, like, share, subscribe if you have not, ask your questions if you have any questions. I try as much as possible to answer all questions that I receive, and I'm sure by now you already know that. So thank you very much. In the next class, we'll be doing a pattern for princess dart bustier. Till we see again, please take care of yourself. Bye.